Ladies and gentlemen, the Prime Minister of the Commonwealth of Australia, Mr. J.B. Chifley.
Fellow citizens, the war is over. The Japanese government has accepted the terms of surrender imposed by the Allied nations, and hostilities will now cease. The reply by the Japanese government to the note sent by Britain, the United Nations, the USSR and China has been received and accepted by the Allied nations. At this moment, let us offer thanks to God. Let us remember those whose lives were given that we may enjoy this glorious moment and may look forward to a peace which they have won for us. Let us remember those whose thoughts, with proud sorrow, turn towards gallant loved ones who will not come back. On behalf of the people and the Government of Australia, I offer humble thanks to the fighting men of the United Nations, whose gallantry, sacrifice and devotion to duty have brought us the victory. Nothing can fully repay the debt we owe them, nor can history record in adequate terms their deeds from the black days that followed September 1939 and December 1941 until this moment. We owe, too, a great debt to those men and women who performed miracles of production in secondary and primary industries so that the battle of supply could be won and a massive effort achieved. Materials, money and resources have been poured out so that the fighting men would not go short. Australia's part comparatively, in terms of fighting forces and supplies, ranks high, and the Australian people may be justly proud of everything they have done. I am sure that you would like me to convey to the commanders of the fighting forces the warmest thanks for their skill, efficiency and great devotion. Especially do I mention General Douglas MacArthur, with whom we had so much in common and with whom we shared the dangers when Australia was threatened with invasion. In your name, I offer to the leaders of the United Nations our congratulations and thanks. We join with the United States in a common regret that their inspiring leader, the late Mr. Roosevelt, did not live to see this day. We thank his successor, President Truman, for the work he has done. Australians, too, will feel their happiness tinged with sorrow that another man who gave his all was not spared to be with us today. That man was John Curtin. To Mr. Churchill, Generalissimo Stalin, and Generalissimo Chiang Kai-shek go the unstinted thanks of free people everywhere for what they have done for the common cause. Especially do we honour Mr. Churchill, with whom in the dark days, to use his own words, we had the honour to stand alone against aggression. And now our men and women will come home, our fighting men with battle honours thick upon them from every theatre of war. Australians stopped the Japanese in their drive south, just as they helped start the first march towards ultimate victory in North Africa. Australians fought in the battles of the air everywhere, and Australian seamen covered every ocean. They are coming home to a peace which has to be won. The United Nations Charter for a world organisation is the hope of the world, and Australia has pledged the same activity in making it successful as she showed in the framing of it. Here in Australia there is much to be done. The Australian government, which stood steadfast during the dread days of the war, will give all that it has to working and planning to ensure that the peace will be a real thing. I ask that the state governments and all sections of the community should cooperate in facing the tasks and solving the problems that are ahead. Let us join together in the march of our nation to future greatness. You are aware of what has been arranged for the celebration of this great victory and deliverance. In the name of the Commonwealth Government, I invite you to join in the Thanksgiving services arranged, for truly This is a time to give thanks to God and to those men against whose sacrifices for us there is no comparison. Good day to you, fellow citizens.
First of April, 1946. As you can see by this, I started it at the lodge, had tucked myself into Uncle's study with a nice fire and was going to write a lovely long letter. But no, other people had other ideas, and so I was dragged out to a picture review that was for the Louis Mountbattens, and I never had another chance to even do that much from then on. The Louis Mountbattens arrived just before we did. Their plane was being taken off the runway as we came in. Yes, I went over with Uncle by plane. It was a thrill. We did it in less than an hour. Yours truly was up front with the crew all the way. They were very nice to me and told me all about everything, what it was for, how it worked. There were one or two gadgets too. The Duke's crew met us. They are a nice lot of men and will probably be going with Uncle on his next trip. There is no rest for the wicked in that place called Canberra. If one is not going to a tea fight, they are having one themselves, or going to some silly turnout where everyone shakes everyone else's hand until it's a wonder one has an arm left. One day Uncle counted that he had shaken the Duke's hand 10 times in a day. Ain't it silly? The times I enjoyed myself the most was the mornings when Uncle and I had breakfast together, as everyone else was in bed. Then I would walk to Parliament House with him and meet the sweepers, and go down to the cellars under the place with an old chap who knew all there was to know about it. There are some wonderful things down there in the dust. Then, of a night after dinner, we would go away from everyone and have coffee and a cigarette in the study. Went into the house of an afternoon for an hour. Gosh, I was proud of my unkie. They can't puffle him, and he's not a bit well. Here's a little advice. If you are ever asked to go to an Indian dinner, don't, unless you want to have an abibless attack. I went to the Indian legation and had dinner with the minister's daughters. At first it was quite discerning. One sits around and looks silly, more than usual I mean, and drinks sweet wines, and because my name is Burdie, I am made bosom friends of a parrot whose name is nobody's business and who sits on my shoulder. By the way, Miss P, I can't spell it, is really a nice person, and she speaks beautiful English. I really like her very much, and I think she likes me a bit too. Well, after everyone drinks as much wine as they can and gets used to the smell of some incense that is burnt in their honour, you proceed to what should be the dining room. The table is lovely, lace mats on beautiful polished black table with a little bouquet of roses in front of you. The first course is served in cut glass dishes. It is shrimp in a kind of pink sauce, which is not too bad, but that is just to deceive. One, for when it is finished, a big tray is put in front of you. What is on it is hard to tell. It seems like a concoction with a capital C of rice and vegetables done in chilies, curry and cayenne pepper. I looked one, and I looked at it, and thought, well, here it goes. The quicker it's over, the better, for one has to do one's duty and stay with it. Now that was a great mistake, for as soon as you finish, they fill it up again, and so it goes until Miss P gives someone at the back of you, who you never see any more than a hand which comes over your shoulder ever so often, a nod. This concoction, which came very close to looking like soup, was eaten by Miss P with her fingers, And believe it or not, she never got any on her chin, not once. They evidently don't believe in washing up, for you wipe up the tray with what she called bubble bread. Burdie. June the 11th, 1948. Ever since I met you in Canberra, I have retained a most gracious memory of a warm reception you gave me, the quality about you reminiscent of Abraham Lincoln, and your evident sympathy with those who toil and are heavily laden. It is this thought which emboldens me to write to you now. Helen Keller. Friday, May the 31st, 1949. Hello, my very dear. Yesterday I went over to Lyons after Mass, which was quite early. My, her children miss Lynn. It was nice being with them, but I had to leave at 3:30 to go to a tea fight at Mrs. Simmons, the housing chappie's wife. Today I did not get up until 11 o'clock. It was wicked morning, but now it's really beautiful. I am in the study with a big fire, and the sun is coming through the window under my chair. That being the reason for this scribble being worse than usual. For instead of sitting at the desk, I have paper on a book on my knee. I have just been out to the kitchen to see Cook. She is busy making all kinds of things, for Uncle is coming over to have dinner with me tonight. Mrs. Pencombs, the housekeeper, has just finished doing all the flowers. Have never seen anything like them. Really beautiful. The sun is shimmering on a big bowl of chrysanthemum blooms just now, and they seem to be dancing in the sunlight. Wednesday afternoon, I went down to the house for question time, and they were all having a go at Uncle, which did not put him out in the least, but made me feel like jabbing them or telling them to stop picking on him. Did you read about the lady, poor thing, who made a real scene in the gallery? Well, Uncle just sat back with a smile and said, "Gentlemen, I think we have a visitor. Yours, Burdie." I try to think of the labour movement, not as putting an extra sixpence into somebody's pocket or making somebody Prime Minister or Premier, but as a movement bringing something better to the people, a better standard of living, greater happiness to the masses of the people. We have a great objective, the light on the hill, which we aim to reach by working to the betterment of mankind, not only here, but anywhere we can give a helping hand. If it were not for that, the labour movement would not be worth fighting for. If the movement can make someone more comfortable, give to some father or mother a greater feeling of security for their children, a feeling that if a depression comes, there will be work, that the government is striving its hardest to do its best, then the labour movement will be completely justified. It does not matter about persons like me who have our limitations. I only hope that the generosity, kindness and friendliness shown to me by thousands of my colleagues in the labour movement will continue to be given to the movement and add to the zest of its work.